everyone, I'm Matt Burns. Welcome to TechCrunch Live. We're live at CES for the very first time we're in person. I'm so thrilled to do this. You know, hardware has been a big passion of mine, and the Consumer Electronics Show has been this massive show for electronic hardware for years. And it's back in person this year, and it's bigger and better than ever. So we're excited to bring you this show live and in person. But first, before we get into our guests, I have to read an ad. So hold with me here. A-Round is delivering the future of in-game sports entertainment and fan engagement through stadium-wide shared augmented reality experiences that bring audiences together into action like never before. This A-Round partners with the Los Angeles Rams to introduce the next generation of shared AR. Learn more at aroundar.com, and thank you very much to A-Round for allowing us to do this. All right, Stuart, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. It's great to be at CES again. Super exciting, like so much energy and so many people, you couldn't even get on the monorail today.
Absolutely, it's very packed.
Yeah.
So you're the founder and CEO of ecobee. You guys created the very first connected thermostat back in 2007, right?
That's right, yeah.
So I want to get a few things out of the way. You've raised 147 million?
Approximately, yeah.
Yep, 149 million. You were acquired by Generac in 2021 for
exactly
770 million. Yeah, exactly a year ago.
Yeah.
It seems to me that if you got acquired, you no longer have to come to this show, but here you are.
Well, I'm super excited about technology and our mission, and really, how do we help people live more sustainably, like simpler and better, but also more sustainably. And I think in the venture world, you always talk about exits, but really, to me, it's like another stage in the journey. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is, when we started the company, we wanted to have impact, environmental impact. How do we grow our environmental impact? And that's really about doing it at scale. And so Generac really allows us to take like the next step, the next order of magnitude increase by adding solar and storage to our products, and really creating this future where we see an abundance of really cheap, clean energy. And so despite everything you read about climate change, you might be in California right now under tremendous rainfall, but the future, I think 10 years from now, is one where we have an abundance of very clean, cheap energy. It's more about when you use that energy versus how much you use.
Sure.
And that's a great future.
Now, you must have came to CES for years. I've been coming for years as
Yeah.
well. And I have a ton of questions to ask you about product market fit and fundraising, but I want to start with CES. How do you think that a hardware startup can best utilize a show like CES?
CES is awesome, and it's awesome for so many reasons. I think everyone is here, right? And so whether it's your suppliers, whether it's your competitors, whether it's media, whether it's customers, they're all here, right? And I think one of your challenges as a startup is, how do you get attention of all those people, right? And if you're just picking up the phone and you're calling, it's a really hit and miss thing, whereas, everyone's here. Usually they can spend, 15 to 30 minutes. Alternately, you can go to their booth and you can like trap them, and they
Yes.
You're like a dog on a bone, like they can't shake you, but you really have an opportunity to create some phenomenal partnerships, to meet people, to explain your story, all at one time in a very condensed place. And then it's just super energizing, I think, to see all the people, all the great innovations. We were talking about it, I've seen the LG like wall of screens, probably 5 or 6 years in a row. I don't know how many years they've had it every year. I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. And so it's just energizing.
Yeah. Now, you guys are big now, but I want to take you back to 2007, 2008, 2009, when you guys were here as a very small startup, right? What was your goals, and what should a goal be for like a pre-Series A hardware startup?
So I think for us, there were a couple things that I think are pretty interesting. Like they used to have Startup Alley, which I think was really good, and you got a lot of media, a lot of buyers, and those types of things going through Startup Alley. So Startup Alley, I don't know if they still have it, but that was a really good thing. I think the other thing is what we've done is we've typically set up a suite, and we bring people into a suite and show them our products and those types of things. And again, like I said, everyone's here, so all your customers are here. If you're looking for international partnerships, those people are here. A lot of really interesting technology gets showcased here. So, one of the things as a hardware company we're trying to do is figure out, like, not just what are the components that we know about, but we have this thing we call puzzle pieces, where you basically take all the hardware components and you throw them on a table, and then you try and put them together in interesting ways to create like really incredible user experiences, right? And so finding out like what puzzle pieces to throw on the table is really important.
Like new puzzle pieces.
New puzzle pieces, right? So Radar would be a really good example. Radar came into our last product, but if you're not at CES and you're not understanding kind of like what the latest state of the art in Radar is and those types of things, that that Radar came from a meeting we had at CES with a radar vendor, right? And all kinds of things like that. I mean, connected home is a lot about, you can think about it, sensors, actuators, and brains, right? And so sensors and actuators, people who make those things, they're here, right?
Yeah,
and so it makes a ton of sense for us, and it's always been really great. We've developed some phenomenal partnerships here, and just love meeting.
Do you see any alternatives?
I don't know that there's anything that's as big. Certainly, if you want to be international, I think this is a very international show, obviously, and from a hardware perspective, which I think is a little bit different.
Yes.
Getting all the different component manufacturers, seeing what they have on their product roadmap is super, super important.
Right.
And I don't think there's another place where you can do that.
Yeah. Now, should a startup have a goal of meeting media or meeting buyers, or just all of the above?
I think you want to, leverage everything you can, right? So if you're going to be here and you're going to bring people here, try and meet with absolutely, everyone you can, and make it jam-packed, and I think you can really do it all, right?
I like it as a member of the media, because there is everyone here. It's so much better to meet people in person than over Zoom. After coming off of COVID for so many years, it feels like this show is much, much bigger than in the past. Are you feeling that as well?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we're whatever, 2 hours in, but just coming in today into the show and walking through the floor, it's jam-packed, and you can feel the energy again, and it feels like 2019. It's really great.
Well, let's go back in time again. So you started in 2007. Why did you start ecobee, and what has that mission changed at all over the years?
Yeah, we started, with a really simple idea, which was, how can we help people conserve energy, save money, and reduce their environmental impact? And, the insight we had was...
I got to pause you. You've said that a lot. It just rolled right off the tongue, right? It definitely sounds like that's a line that you use.
Yeah, that's
what it is.
That's what we started. It's a funny story, right? Because what happened was I was trying to I just quit my job. I was partner in a VC firm, and I had this cushy job, and I was like, screw it, I don't want to do this anymore. And I left, and so my wife was like, "Okay, honey, what are you doing?" Right? And so I was like, "I'm gonna, because I had some time, I was gonna reduce our environmental impact." So I spent $26,000 on solar panels, and I went to buy a Toyota Prius. And my wife was like, "Whoa, honey, you don't have a job, and this is gonna break us, right?" And that sort of kicked off this what are practical ways that people can reduce their environmental impact. And the insight we had is that heating and cooling is 40 to 70% of your home's energy use. So actually better managing your heating and cooling is the best thing that you can do, but the products in the market at the time were impossible to use. And one day, my wife came home, and we had 3 kids under the age of 5, and our house was I think 50 degrees. My wife was like, "Okay, honey, either you or the thermostat has to go, because I can't live with both of you," right? And that kicked off the how do we make this better? If we could connect it to the internet, if we could use data like weather, energy prices, how much better can we do? And the really cool part is that our customers have saved enough energy to take the cities of Los Angeles and Chicago off the grid, and I think by next year we'll add Houston onto that. And so it is a massive, massive impact. Almost 30 terawatt hours of energy saved, and so significant impact.
Right. So in 2007, you guys were prototyping this. What would the market look like?
So it's really interesting, actually, because when we started and we launched the first smart thermostat, which was this one here, actually, we were really that's upside down. We were really proud of it, and if you go back in time to what that was, this was actually quite forward thinking and all that kind of stuff. And then of course I think it was 2010. I don't remember exactly, but Nest came out, right? And then it was holy shit,
2011.
2011.
Yep.
This isn't that good, right? And I think what it taught us, and it really changed the trajectory of the company, is that the difference between wanting to be good and actually being good are 2 very different things. And it really forced us to retool and think about what being great is, and really think about what it takes to be great. And
sure.
Credit the team to really go back and not give up and say the world is over, and create some really awesome products. And I'll just tell one more funny story about that. When we started, we were trying to raise venture capital, and venture capitalists were like, "Stuart, nobody wants a $250 thermostat. No one cares about thermostats. No one will ever." And they looked at me like I was an idiot, right? And that was bad, right? And then after Nest came out, they were like, "Of course everybody wants a $250 thermostat, but Nest is already won." And so then they looked at me with pity, right? And that was much worse.
Yes.
It was like, you're a dead man walking. And so I guess sort of the part of that message, I guess, is this idea, and I think a number of authors who talk about it, really about having a worthy competitor, and they really pushed us to be better. Not that I want to give Nest any credit, but having that worthy competitor, having multiple players in the space, helping us grow the space, and that kind of stuff is really important.
Well, I reached out to Matt Rogers of Nest before this interview.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he had a couple questions to ask that I should ask for him.
Okay.
But really the main one.
I was told I was not allowed to swear on this show. Just kidding.
Well, no, he thought it was very good, and I think the question
I have tons of
is
respect
very
for Matt and Tony and what they accomplished. It's huge, wonderful.
Yeah, they're curious how the launch of Nest changed your product market fit. You guys it seemed like you're going after contractors before the Nest came out.
Yeah.
And then Nest came out. So tell me what happened.
So I think, there were, and maybe in retrospect they sound obvious, so I apologize if this sounds obvious, but I think the first thing was what I talked about before, which is this idea of like wanting to be great and being great being two different things. Mm-hmm. And when we started and we thought back through the product that we built, we made a bunch of compromises, right? And I think sometimes as a startup founder, you're like, well, that's going to be hard, or that's too expensive, or they'll never go for that, or it'll take too long.
Sure.
And so, you start with this great idea, and then you sort of negotiate yourself down, and then you've got like an 80% product. And then if you're like me and your execution is 80%, then you got like a 56% product. A 56% product is actually pretty shit. And if you're a startup, you need to get word of mouth, right? And so you need people to love you, and so to get people to love you, you really need to be like a 96, 97% product. And that's one of the core lessons that Nest taught us, so that was a key thing. The second part was, we really thought about what are the capabilities that we need to be really world-class, and we went out and we got, for example, world-class user experience, and world-class industrial design, and those two things had a significant positive impact. And then the third part was customer segmentation, right? And so when we started, I was like, we got to listen to our customers. And so every customer support email that we came in, I sent it to everyone in the company, right? And we cornered the market for mechanical engineering professors from small northeastern universities because they loved our product and they just wanted more data on how your HVAC, worked. And so while Nest was winning with consumers, we were winning with mechanical engineering professors. And so really thinking carefully about like who your segments, like why do they love you, and focusing on your brand and those segments, I think, really changed the trajectory for us.
That was a long journey then, right? From 2007 to past 2011. Yep. You guys were trying to find product market fit this whole time, right?
Yep.
What did it feel like when you finally hit that?
It's an awesome feeling. I mean, I think, you can feel the market pull. So how do you know that you have product market fit is, the market pulls you and you start selling. It used to be, I don't know that I went out personally and sold every single unit, but it certainly felt like that, right?
Yes.
And and it was difficult and it was hard, and people didn't know about it. And part of that was product market fit, and part of that was the market was early, right? Mm-hmm. And so it hadn't developed. I think it's another thing that having Nest in the market did for us is, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you better. And one of the things is, I remember one day I went home and I take the subway home, and I'm on the subway, and like every single billboard on every bus shelter, every subway car was a Nest ad. And I was like, those bastards, they know where I live and they're just messing with my head, right? Yes. And then of course I flew to Chicago and they put up a billboard everywhere in Chicago too. It's like, it had nothing to do with me. I don't think they even knew who I was. But but they created also some market, and so part of our marketing strategy was how do we get in behind the market momentum that they're creating, and we had this strategy which was really win in the last 3 feet, right? So customers do reviews, win with consumers, and win in the last 3 feet. Let Nest create a lot of the market awareness because they're spending a lot of money, something that we can't do. And we talk a lot about not trying to beat Google using the same things that Google does, right? We can't out Google or out Honeywell. We have to have different strategies.
Sure. But it's that long journey that I want to focus on. How do you keep the team motivated and focused when there's a major competitor that just launched out of nowhere?
Yeah, I think we had we believed in the vision, I think, and the other thing I think is Daniel Pink talks about engagement and about purpose, mastery, and autonomy, right? And as being critical to engagement, right? And I think one of the really exciting things about the business overall, and it hasn't stopped, is that we were getting better, right? And you could see yourself getting better, and it's almost like one of those fitness apps, where you can see yourself and you're getting better and better, and you're like,
Sure.
okay, I want to do more, right? And so, as a team, it was incredibly energizing because you could see the trajectory of the company, and the company was getting better and better over time. And I think that's incredibly motivating. And we were, keen on our mission, and we felt we had a better way of doing it. And so, I think through that period, it was very difficult, but it was incredibly rewarding too.
Yeah. Now, you guys raised a bunch of money after the Nest came out. And I don't want to focus on Nest a lot, but it's a big milestone, right?
Yeah.
2011, you guys were earlier, and then they launched, and you guys suddenly became bigger. What fundraising round really changed the company?
I think the fundraising, it was interesting. We had a really hard time raising capital. So I know you sit in a lot of these podcasts and you hear someone say like, oh yeah, I just walked in PowerPoint and walked out with $100 million. And I'm like, that was not
No. Yes, some people say that.
Yeah.
But the most people say it took me 100, 150 pitch meetings to get funding.
Yeah, no, I was like 174, at least 174 rejections. It was hard. We were lucky in that we got funded by some of our largest customers. And so we had a utility that was one of our customers, and they did a $5 million round in probably 2013, or 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. And that, but that time we'd only raised probably less than $20 million. And then we did a big raise after we had, after we were on the trajectory and things had really taken off. But those early years, two of our core partners, one was this utility, the other one was Carrier Corporation. And so I'd say as an entrepreneur, VCs are a great place to get money, obviously, but go back into your customer base, and if you have some good partnerships, we were very lucky that we got funded from some of those partners.
One of the partners that funded you was Amazon.
Yep.
And the Amazon Alexa Fund. You took money in 2018, 2017 from them?
Yep.
And you were the biggest one at the time. Would you do that deal again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think our relationship with Amazon has been great. They've been good partners. I tell people it's like family. Like I love my family. We don't always get along, right? And I would say our relationship with Amazon has been like that. But they've been, really, really great partners. And we were very early in that Alexa ecosystem. So again, it was like working out like how the Alexa ecosystem was going to work. It's gotten a lot easier, I think, to work with all of the major ecosystem providers because now they're dev kits and all those kinds of things. And those days there were like no dev kits, and we were all writing stuff all at the same time, live and shipping live, and so again, like super exciting time, and they were a phenomenal partner.
Yeah. Would you advise other hardware startups to work with Amazon?
Absolutely, absolutely.
They have a reputation of sometimes taking meetings and then taking the ideas and producing those ideas on their own.
Yeah, I think that's always a challenge, like no matter who you meet with, right? And I can, I can think of a bunch of meetings in our history where it feels like people took our ideas and went somewhere else. When we thought about it as a startup, the challenge was like if you didn't divulge what you were doing, you weren't going to get the partnership either, right? So it was kind of like, you either lose this way or you lose that way. At least the other way, you had a shot of, building a partnership. And as I said, our partnership with Amazon was always, really, really great. They've created their own thermostats. I think at the end of the day, you have to believe that you can stand alone compete in the market, or you should get out because you're going to compete. And I think we're a good example of competing with Google for whatever it is, 15 years, and I'm still here.
You're still here, and you found an exit. Yeah, very good.
So I think you can do it, and for us, it made us better actually.
Yeah. Now you guys went through a big prototyping exercise, always, right?
Yeah.
I was hoping you could take us through that as well. So if you're a young hardware startup, where would you start?
So maybe a couple things. So this was our first product, and as I said, when we built it, we thought it was great, and you can make your own conclusion, but I don't think it's great. It's good, but it's not great, right?
I think it looked fine. 2007 thermostats did not look like that.
And but we made one, right? And if you look at what we do now, we're and I brought a bunch of these, but we make literally 3D printing has helped, but like we make literally hundreds of them, right? To kind of figure it out, and we use user testing. This is one of my favorites. So this was an idea, and we were in a room, and we're like, this should be like a river stone, right? And when you put it in your hands, and you feel it is smooth like a river rock, and that feeling, and anyway, and then we showed it to consumers, and the consumers were like, that looks like an overstuffed marshmallow, like,
Yeah.
And so I think, you want to do lots of iterations and test a lot and get consumer reaction, understand how it fits with your brand, And that's become a lot easier to do, which is great, and a lot less expensive to do. But I think one of the things that is a bit difficult in a hardware situation is that there's this idea of kind of like a minimum viable product,
yes.
right? And you might call this a minimum viable product. I think it's more than a minimum viable product. And you're like, I want to get to market, and I think it's really great. One of the things we say is that we compete with Apple, right? And you might say like, well, Apple doesn't make thermostats. Like, what are you talking about? But when somebody uses our product, the experience they expect is the same as if they're using their iPhone, right? And if it's not that good, they're like, that's not very good, or that's crap, or whatever it is. And so you need to set a really high bar. And so the idea of like getting to market quickly works against you from the perspective of consumers, especially in consumer electronics, expect a really high bar, right? And then once you start shipping in volume, if you run into problems, hardware is way more difficult, right? Software, you just send a patch and you're good. Hardware, depending on what the problem is, you can't necessarily patch it. And so really being careful about your testing and thoughtful about that stuff. And we learned the hard way. You have 3 kinds of problems, right? You've got like the 0.1% problems, which are not really a problem because they're a 0.1% problem. You've got like the 50% problems, which are not a problem actually because you're going to find it for sure. The hard ones are the 4% problems, because the 4% problems, if you run like a 100-person field trial as an example, you might get 1, right? And is that which one of those is? But a 4% problem, like very hard to detect, but if it gets into the field and you have escapes, really, really expensive to fix.
Sure.
And so you want to do a lot of testing, a lot of field trials, have release criteria, like what do we have to hit in order from a customer satisfaction perspective before we release these products, and having very disciplined processes about how you do that is really important.
It sounds to me that you're saying don't ship the MVP.
Don't ship the MVP, I would not.
What is the MVP for then?
I think the MVP, you want to get products in people's hands as quickly as possible, right? And different markets are different, but certainly like if you think about all the HVAC equipment that's in people's homes, it's probably manufactured over the last 50 years. And then we were talking about it before, like we live in Canada. When we started, I didn't come from the HVAC industry. I knew nothing about HVAC. None of us knew anything about HVAC actually. And then all of a sudden we went to Arizona, and someone in Arizona was like, yeah, I want to air condition and I want to humidify at the same time. And we're like, nobody does that, right? That's crazy talk, right? And so the way people use the equipment, everyone in where I live has a basement. Like you go down to Texas, no one has a basement, right? And so just all these different things about how your product fits, how people use it, how they want it to work, all that kind of stuff. Getting that as quickly as possible, because the variability of where you're going to be installed is different.
Sure. You guys started this whole smart home category, right?
Yep.
So you've watched a lot of products come and go. Where do you think most hardware projects fail?
I don't know, sort of that line, like, each family is unhappy in their own way, right? Like I think it's hard to generalize. I think, if I thought through the things that were really important to us and things that really made a positive impact, it was those things. It was really thinking carefully about our brand and our customer segments, right? So who are the people that we're trying to serve? Who are the people who are going to get us to cross the chasm? And then thinking about our brand and thinking about like, what do those people care about? What do we stand for? And how do those align? That was really, really important. 2, figuring out like, what are the real critical competencies we need to be successful? So that was another key piece. And then 3 is really setting a high bar, and winning with consumers, and really, making sure that you win with word of mouth. Because if you can get word of mouth, no amount of spending can overcome word of mouth, right? And so, having a customer love you, tell their friends about you, and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing, more exciting. I mean, I remember when we started, my wife was like, we'd go out to like someone's house for dinner or something like that, and she'd be like, if somebody asks you like what you do for a living, can you not tell them? Can you lie, right? Because nobody wants to talk about thermostats, right? And then like a few years later, everyone was like, oh yeah, I've got my Ecobee, it's like so cool, and I'm like into connected home, and here's my camera, and I want to talk about it, and all that kind of stuff. And so, that having consumers like talk about your your products and tell their friends and tell people how great it is a great way to move the needle on your product.
But consumers are fickle, right? And so how do you keep up with changing consumer expectations?
I don't know that consumers are fickle, right? I think, again, that's like a brand thing, like what do you stand for and what you care about. And I think one of the problems is that if you try and service all customers, they want lots of things, you end up with kind of like this Frankenstein thing. And, a really good question is like, are we trying to service customers who want the lowest price thermostat, right? And if you start trying to do that, then you're going to put like a really crappy user interface on it because you have to get that
Right.
price point, right?
Sure.
Or you can say like, no, you know what? There's a market for that, but that's not the consumer that we're going after. We're going after, in our case, like a mid to premium consumer who's willing to pay for quality, wants a product that's going to be installed in their home for the next 10 to 15 years. And you know what? It's going to cost a little bit more, but there are lots of things that cost a little bit more that I'm happy to pay for quality, as long as I get the quality, right?
Right.
And those types of things drive compounding decisions, and things like sustainability is another good one, right? And I think it's becoming more mainstream, but it used to be like, well, lots of people hate sustainability, and you're going to piss off a lot of people because they're like, I don't believe in that stuff. And but if you don't stand for something, then it's hard to cross the chasm. And so those people who love you, you want them to really, really love you, right? And hopefully you can bring the rest of the people around. But having a few people who love you a lot is way better than having a bunch of people who are like, meh.
Right, right. And I think one of the reasons people love you guys is you just sell the product and there's no subscription service. But with that, there's no recurring revenue. What did your investors say to that along the way?
Yeah, I think we do a number of things. So one is we see a strong nexus between security and energy, right? And so if you think about how we help people manage energy better, it's really about understanding what's happening in your home and context, right? And really you manage energy in one of three ways. You're either home and awake, you're home and asleep, or you're away. So if we can understand that, we can do a much better job of managing your energy, right? And so, we started putting sensors around your house, and then we were like, now we have these occupancy sensors and temperature sensors, which was really about how do we make people more comfortable. We were like, that's a security system, right? And our customers were telling us, like, you've got a security system, like, why am I paying for, whoever my security provider is? And so that really drove us into security, which is a recurring revenue service, and we feel customers are really happy about it. The other thing we're doing is we're working with utilities, and we've created a thermal model of your home, so everyone is individualized, and we create a comfort model, so we understand the temperatures that you're comfortable at, and that allows us to adjust the temperature in your home without impacting your comfort. But that also allows us to work with utilities to drive lower energy prices across the board, and customers get benefit from that. And about 20% of our customers are in utility programs and see tremendous benefits from those. And so there are a bunch of things that we can do and work in different ways. And again, I think part of what we're trying to do is we're designing products that are built for your home, not for landfill, right? And rather than like, how do I upgrade you to the next possible product, and can you buy this next product that I have 2 years from now? We're like, we want to be in your home for the next 15 years, right? And create this software platform that allows us to deliver better services over time. And so somebody, I never thought I would say this, which is like, my thermostat has a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core CPU with 2 gigs of flash and 500 megs of RAM, but it does, right? But why does it have that? It's got like 5 radios in it. Like, why does it have that? Well, it's so that it's software upgradable over time, and as we improve the product, you get the benefits of all those upgrades. And ideally, we're going to have a very long-term relationship with you because you get all those benefits. If we went the other way again and said like, hey, we want to be the cheapest thing in the market, you don't have enough memory, you don't have enough CPU, you can't do some of the things that we're doing that we think will have significant benefits for consumers over time.
I think it's great that you guys can say that. That's a really hard thing to sell to investors, though. That we want to be a 15-year product.
Yeah.
We don't want people to buy our new product.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have to hardware startups that want to follow your steps?
I think one of my favorite lines is a line from Scott Adams, who's the Dilbert creator, and it's like, venture capital is the only profession where you get paid an outrageous amount of money to be wrong 90% of the time, right? And so, I think it's bad at, like, we were talking about that, I think, we were rejected 174 times for venture capital, and, I remember VCs telling us, like, fail fast or give up now, right? And
right.
I don't smoke, but I remember like in the days when everybody used to smoke outside the building, and I came down from this venture capital firm that told us like to fail fast and like, Stuart, it's all over, don't waste your time. And I was so stressed, I was like, I bummed a cigarette off somebody, and I'm standing outside, and it's a February day, and it's like freezing cold, and I'm like smoking the cigarette, don't tell my wife, and I'm like, should I quit, should I quit, should I quit? And I'm like, you know what? I'm not quitting until like they take the keys out of my dead hand. Like, I'm just like, I'm all in, and I'm committed, and the short answer is people don't know. Nobody knows, right? Only you know And if you're committed and you're excited about what you're doing and you can create great products, you're going to do well. And for all the complexity there is, business at the end of the day is actually quite simple. If you can build a great product at a reasonable price and provide reasonable service, people are going to love you, right? And that's whether you go to a hotel or a restaurant or you buy a hardware product or whatever it is. And so focus on those three things,
sure,
and the rest takes care of itself.
Now I looked at your cap table a lot,
yep.
And Relay Ventures has seemed to be a very good partner for you guys. How did you find Relay?
Well, I was a partner at Relay Ventures, so.
Well, that helps.
So when I started I started one of the first internet service providers in Canada back in 1994, and I met John Albright, who's the managing partner, when I started that business, and we did a deal with John back in 1995, and I've been good friends and colleagues with John ever since then. And I spent 8 years as a partner in a venture capital firm, and then I woke up one day and I was like, this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. And it was quite funny because when I quit that job, people were like, you quit that job, like being a partner in a venture capital firm to start a thermostat company?
Yeah.
That's, you're bananas. Anyway.
Yeah, so my question is really, how do you find that first partner, and what should you expect from them?
I think you want to know that you're aligned in terms of vision and where you want to take the business. And you want to understand kind of what their track record is. You want someone, especially in the early stages, someone who's really committed to the long-term vision, right? And red flags are things like structure and lots of terms and all that kind of stuff, because I think as an early stage investor, you don't make your money on getting you from, let's say, I'm making up numbers, like a $25 million pre-money to a 32, It's like you're going from 25 to 500, right?
Sure.
Or whatever the number is, right? And so it should be simple, it should be fairly easy and straightforward. It's very anecdotal, right? So when I was a partner in a venture capital firm, you'd like to think that it was, I'm quite analytic. One of the reasons I was not a good venture capitalist was because, I'm quite analytic, and I always wanted to work out the numbers and the math and all that kind of stuff, and I could never do it. And so you have to, I think, as an early stage VC, believe in the promise. And in many ways, when you're starting a business, the easiest time to sell your business is not sell it, but sell it to VCs, is when you have nothing, because there's only upside from there, right?
Sure.
You don't have any problems, you don't have a revenue track record, and then it's about taking lots of meetings, meeting lots of people, creating relationships. I mean, I think one of the things that always surprised me when I was a venture capitalist is, everybody sees something a partner will see something like 500 business plans in a year, right? I don't think that, that number is controversial.
No.
And so people would send me a business plan and I'd never hear from them again, right? And it goes into one of three piles. It goes into the I'm super excited pile, which is a good pile. It goes into the I'm not excited at all pile, that's also a good pile. And then it goes into the middle pile, which is maybe, right, maybe let me think about it. And those ones just keep stacking up, and you fall down the list and you get lost. And so, but if you're not calling me, you don't want to bug me, but if you're not calling me on a sort of regular cadence to say hey, how's it going? Just can I, tell you any more information? The number of people who sent in, or we had a meeting and I never heard from them again, was high.
I've done a lot of these interviews, and we've talked a lot about board members, but there have always been SaaS companies or medical companies, never hardware.
Yeah.
What should a good board makeup be for a hardware company?
I think you want a good group of independents. I think also you want to know, what you want out of your board as a CEO, right? And so are you looking for a Rolodex? Are you looking for connections? Are you looking for operating advice? I think some of my best board members were people who had sat in the seat that, I was sitting in, but had, developed the business a lot further. And those people were super helpful because they really, cut through a lot of the noise, first of all, in terms of helping the rest of the board stay focused on let's just stay focused on what's important. And also you as a management team, what's important, and mentoring you in terms of how to be successful, how to run a large company. I mean, one of the things I didn't expect was, I was like, okay, if we get to I'm making up a number, 50 million in revenue, life will be easy and it'll be gravy, right? And we got to 50 million in revenue, and it was man, it's way harder, right? And but the problems are in different places, right? And so the problems are how do you manage 500 people, and how do you communicate and all that kind of stuff, and so the changes really change. And I think, one of the great opportunities as a CEO of a startup company is reinventing yourself constantly. Sure. Because the role that you're in, I tell people when I started, I was the CEO, but really I was a product manager, right? And, I called myself the CEO and I could be like all chopped up, but it's like, no, you're a product manager, right? And, now, there are about 600 people at Ecobee, and so how do you manage like 600 people? How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them focused? Some of the things you talked about, that's a different skill set that I did not appreciate.
Where do you feel insecure about your leadership?
Well, that's a difficult one. I don't know. I don't know that I have a good answer to that. I think, we all have insecurities. I think, you want, sometimes, I'm sure everyone's seen Animal House, and there's that scene, where they're all down, and then, what's his name, runs around like, who's with me? Like, anyway. I am a running around the office, who's with me, kind of people, and sometimes I feel like, nobody's, Jim Belushi, that's who it was, right? It was Jim Belushi, I think. Anyway, he's running, who's with me? And sometimes I feel like that. Sometimes
John Belushi, right?
John Belushi, sorry,
yes.
Yeah, pardon me. And I'm like, okay, sometimes I feel like that.
Yeah. Ecobee is an interesting company, and one of our other editors, Daryl, who lives up in Toronto, he wanted to know where the name came from.
Yeah. Well, I think, two things really. One was eco, which is really at the core of what we're doing, and how do we help people live more in a more environmentally friendly way. And then the other part is really bees signify nature, and bees are communal animals, they're social animals, they work together. They actually air condition their hives. So it made a lot of sense from then. But the other part is that we worked with this firm. So you got like 4 engineers who are like, marketing as a logo kind of thing was like our level of depth on marketing. And so, this firm is pulling out their hair. They're like, these guys are like morons, right? And anyway, so the other choice they came up with was Lily Duck. And so it was Lily Duck or Ecobee, and we were like, okay, It can't be Lily Duck, so it's like Ecobee.
It can't be Lily Duck.
Yeah.
I'm glad you went with that one. Now, I have to get back here. Another question that was submitted through Twitter, John Martin. He's the CEO and founder of Inlo. It's an Internet of Things thing. It's in your category. He really wants to know, and we talked about this briefly, but how can you make a profit? Does anybody make a profit in your space? Are you guys profitable?
Yeah, I think so. I think absolutely. I think you have to think really hard about your margins, and work on it every single day, right? And to be a sustainable business, and we talk about this too, like if we want to have impact, and we want to have impact at scale, the only way to do that is to make sure you have longevity in your business. And the sooner you can cut the cord from having to go and raise capital, that is incredibly liberating. You don't want to be on the 18-month, I got to raise capital every 18 months, I got to tell the story, worry about the ups and downs in the markets, or sometimes you run into issues. Mm-hmm. And so having the discipline to get to profitability, I think is really important. And I don't think it is, I think you can get there. I don't think it's it's an impossible task, but you need to be very disciplined, really in terms of thinking about what are the important things to move your mission forward, right? Okay. And trying to do less, right? And we generally try and do a lot of things, and if I look back and I'm self-critical, I would say there are lots of things that we did that, we started and they were good ideas, but, mm-hmm. We didn't either put enough weight behind them to turn them into really great things, or we lost confidence or whatever it is. And so if I could eliminate all those things, we'd be way better. We would have been much further ahead, all that kind of stuff. And so, being thoughtful about cutting those things, and I think there are quite a few things where,
Sure.
Staying focused and really trying to do a few things well, right, rather than many things kind of 70%.
Were you guys profitable when Generac bought you?
We were, and I think our core thermostat business was. So we separate things into like our core business, and then our new business. Security would be a new business for us, and so we think about how we invest in those businesses in a different way. But our core business was. I mean, I think one of the strengths and weaknesses of not being Nest, not being Google is we didn't have a choice, right? Like we couldn't raise capital, right? Or, and in the early days, it was really, really difficult. And so, we were raising literally like $5 million at a time, and, and that had to leave us. So if we had a burn rate that was more than $500,000 a month, like Sure. That's it, we're out. Like, and so that really forced, how do we think about margins and, channels we sell in and all that kind of stuff.
You guys tried or almost did a SPAC. two years ago, right?
Yep.
What was the story behind that? Why did that fall through? Where would the company be if you had succeeded?
So I think one of the exciting things was we had lots of different options, right? And again, we were looking to raise more capital, and I think we had an opportunity to go through a traditional IPO. We had opportunities to go public via SPAC. We could have raised money privately, and each of those has their strengths and weaknesses. And so, as we went through that process of trying to figure out where we would do our next capital raise, we started working with Generac, and one of the very cool things is we have a very clear common vision of where we think the world is going and what the opportunities are, and that's really this world of cleaner, cheaper energy for everyone. And so it just made a lot of sense to tie up with them, and we wanted to get into solar and storage. They're already in solar and storage. They had a strong electrical channel, which we would have had to build, and so it allowed us to really move our mission forward at a much faster pace, and so it was a great outcome for us.
Yeah, how long are you going to stay around ecobee now?
Forever.
Yeah?
Yeah. No, I'm excited. I think we talked about this a little bit, people say it's an exit, and it's an exit for your VCs, but it's not an exit necessarily for you as a founder. And I think, you can exit in a bunch of different ways, and this is the third company I've started. I've sold all three, and what I realized when I sold my first company is that it was an exit. I made some money, it was great, and then the new buyers ran it into the ground, right? And you're like, okay, I put my heart and soul into this thing, and so it was really an exit, right? And I think for us again, I see it more as a fundraising thing because it allows us to really continue on our mission and really take the next step, add solar and storage. I think from an energy perspective, if you look at what's happening, the price of renewables is dropping precipitously. So solar is the cheapest power you can buy anywhere, 2 cents a kilowatt hour. You're electrifying everything, so EVs, heat pumps, those types of things, and then you're connecting everything. And if you look at, California curtailed enough clean power to power, I think, 200,000 homes in 2021, right? And that's doubling every single year, right? So if you're a smart thermostat and you know that there is free, clean power on the grid, you can take advantage of that, right? And that combination of being able to take advantage of energy arbitrage. So it's a combination of cheap solar, storage, but then these intelligent appliances that understand what's happening in your home in context, understand what's happening on the grid or what's on your roof, and then modulating the way they use energy to take advantage of those arbitrage opportunities creates amazing opportunities, I think, for consumers.
I don't see why your wife doesn't let you talk about this at dinner parties. It's fascinating. You're very passionate about it, so you're sticking around. Yeah.
I am, absolutely.
Yeah. So what's next for ecobee?
I think we're super excited about integrating solar and storage. If you're in California right now, there are huge debates on solar around net metering and what's the outcome for that. If you put solar panels on your roof, I tell people, I have solar panels on my roof. I put them in, I think, in 2010, no, maybe 20, anyway, long time ago. I get paid 82 cents a kilowatt hour for everything I generate. That's a lot of money, right? And then about 5 years after that, utilities started saying, well, I'll pay you what you would pay me. So if you were paying 13 cents a kilowatt hour, I'll pay you 13 cents a kilowatt hour for what you export. Now they're saying we won't take what you're exporting, right? And so if you think about the ROI on your solar panels, if you can self-consume that power, it's clean, it's free, you've already, paid for it. And you're just going to see more and more of that because when you look at the energy markets, coal is at 13 cents and nuclear is at 13 cents and then gas is at 7 cents, but wind is at 5 and solar is 2. And so, they clear the market first every single time. And if you're, one of those other things, it's not government regulation that's driving those off, it's economics because you just can't make any money. And so having these intelligent devices that, understand what's happening and can take advantage of that, I think is a huge opportunity.
Well, I learned a lot today, and they're turning the lights off for some reason. I don't know why.
That happens to me.
That was a good timing, right? Yeah, it happens to you. That's what you get for having solar.
Yeah,
just joking.
Right. No, it's time to go home from the bar. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Stuart, thank you so much for joining me. This has been our first live and in-person TechCrunch Live event. I was thrilled to have you. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a great show.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome. Great. That was really fun.
We're good. Yeah,
Thanks.
well, I'm glad.
Hopefully I didn't lecture you. You said I could, but hopefully I did.
No, it was very good.